industrious people. These people look all right. The mailman, the farmer, the cop. They all look pretty much like the folks back home. Holding down jobs, raising families, enjoying life. They certainly look like the kind of people we can understand.
Or can we? A quiet, decent people who prepared 20 years to bring war into the world? A religious people who burn churches, imprison ministers, persecute the faithful? A kindly people who accept blood purges, pogroms, concentration camps? A gentle people who torture, starve, exterminate? These were men. They died in German concentration camps.
Now let's see what happens to one of Hitler's children. Kindergarten, and little Hans learns the fairy tales of the new order. Remember the story of the Sleeping Beauty? Hans was taught that the Wicked Witch was democracy. And Sleeping Beauty, who can she be? Aha, here comes the prince. The prince is victorious. Democracy has fled. The prince breaks the magic spell with a kiss. The beautiful princess is Germany. And the brave, handsome knight, you know who he is.
United under Prussian leadership to form the German Empire. And in the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles, heart of defeated France, Bismarck saw his Prussian king crowned German emperor, absolute monarch of a new empire, founded on blood, iron, and conquest.
The distortion of this tale has its purpose in molding the young Nazi mind. Hitler becomes Hans's idol.
Victoria, emblem of victory. Not the Liberty Bell, not the Magna Carta, not Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, not any symbol of freedom, but Victoria, the symbol of conquest. Thus, Prussia had created Germany, and the myth of Prussian superiority had become the myth of the master race.
What would the Führer think of such a stupid answer? What would Herr Goering say? And Herr Goebbels?
Dummkopf! Wer kann mir nur die richtige Antwort geben?
Now then, who can give the correct answer?
Ich weiß! Es zeigt uns, dass die Welt den Starken gehört!
The world belongs to the strong.
Und dem Brutalen!
And to the brutal.
Der Hase ist schwach und feige und verdient.
The rabbit is a coward and deserves to die. They spit on the rabbit. Not his.
Gut! Gut! Ausgezeichnet! Und nun, Hans, was denkst du jetzt von dem armen Häschen?
Ich hasse es!
He hates the rabbit. There's no room for weaklings. Hans is learning fast. My, how he hates that rabbit.
Ich hasse ihn!
In the newly created Reich, industry flourished as never before. The merchant fleet grew larger every day. German harbors were jammed with commerce, and German stomachs filled with beer and sausage. Germany had achieved unity, become rich. No other country threatened her. The world hoped for a peaceful, good neighbor. But the world had forgotten the Prussian tradition that Germany had inherited. A tradition not of peace and friendship, but of war and conquest.
Damn it is verdammt. Verdammt. You spell it with a V, not an F, at the very beginning. So it's verdammt. Verdammt.
Industry was carefully controlled to accord with the policies of the great General Staff. For in the new Reich, Bismarck had added a fourth pillar to the structure of the warlike state. Frederick's militarists, landowners, and state officials had been joined by the big industrialists. A gigantic railroad system was laid out, more according to strategic war plans than the necessities of peacetime trade. One of the largest navies was constructed. The army was built up to staggering proportions. And the German officer was the idol of the nation, the personification of German ambition. In German colleges, the sport of German youth was not football, but the deadly duel. Scar was the badge of honor. The more scars, the handsomer. Did they not prove the man's prowess in arms? And
love. What do we know of love? We know a baby loves with all its tiny heart, and is loved in return by hearts as simple and as pure. We know a growing child thrives on love, and with its generous limbs apportions that love to the rest of the world. We know that youth drenches itself with the perfume of its love, a wild, heedless love bordering on heroism. And the wise love placidly and deeply. One is said to love a place, a thing, an idea. You love your country and your liberty. And of course, there is the greatest love of all, that of a gentle soul in thoughtful prayer to God.
Attentively watching all stood the great General Staff, still directed by the Prussian Junkers, secure in the knowledge that their power and authority was indisputable. Germany was geared for war. All it needed was a new leader to give the word, and again that leader was at hand. William II of Hohenzollern, the Kaiser that your father knew. Not a shrewd, clever cynic like Bismarck, but a vain and arrogant braggart, yet a leader in the German tradition. We Germans like to bear arms, and we like the game of war. I shall enlarge your borders. And what did Carl Schmitt's father say to all this? A German spark has always ignited the fire. Soon everything will be aflame.
Then there is pride or self-love, a malignant vanity, insatiable, the pride of the Teuton. Why must such a belligerent urge ravage all that is lovely and right? One must forgive. But a crime against humanity is a crime against God. One must have the discipline to fight for what is right in the Lord's eyes. We must restore peace to his earthly garden. of God.
Under the combined attack of the Allies, the German army started to crumble, to fall back, to run from battle. Germany was at the mercy of the Allies. General von Ludendorff, the German chief of staff and virtual dictator, was forced to send a secret message to the Berlin government. The offer of peace must be transmitted immediately. The army cannot wait another 48 hours. The Allies could grant the armistice or fight on to unconditional surrender. Georges Clemenceau, the wartime French leader, urged that the Allies should march triumphant into Berlin. Our own General Pershing said, "Complete victory can only be obtained by continuing the war until we force unconditional surrender."
また偵察機じゃったの。お父ちゃん、いいの飛行機もじゃ。
よう晴れとるけ、はっきり残っとるの。今日は暑なるぞ。
Weather observation plane easterly, calling Enola Gay, calling Enola Gay. Weather's fair and clear over Hiroshima. Condition favorable for bombing. Roger, Enola Gay. Getting ready to drop on target.
お姉ちゃん、わしは先に学校へ行くぞ。うん。あんちゃん、早く帰ってこいや。帰って船走らすんじゃけ。おう。約束だぞお父ちゃん、お姉ちゃん、早く来てみたいや。なんで
どうしたんじゃ。
あれが家の中入ってくるよ。ものすごいね。
こうなってるんじゃん。
B じゃ。え ?B29 じゃ。ほんとじゃ。いつの間に来たんじゃ。おかしいね。空襲警報ならんもんね。どうしたんだろう。
Altitude 3,600 feet.
Fixed on target. Release bomb.
Roger. Releasing bomb.